Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
It is 11 o'clock. Welcome inside the Lock Shop. They're up a little bit. I got some new earbuds, and boy, they are really popping. I maybe a little bit higher, Matt. A little bit higher. But the first time ever, I told him to turn it down. So maybe I can hear again. That's incredible. Dusty with you. Oh, yeah, your mic's not plugged in right now. Dusty with you here on the Lock Shop. Hus is going to be popping by right away. Pat Gregoire, Pete Greggy, is going to slide in as well. He'll be by probably like midway through the show. I see the nasty chat already going here in the Lock Shop. How about we build some winners today? Lock Shop partner parlay. Cha-ching! That cashes last night. We said it. The boys are red hot. The boys are red hot. We're going to try to keep that rolling. Fantasy Football 5 coming up in about 50 minutes' time. And should be an excellent oil stream today with myself and Tommy Gazzola as we break down the Oilers' loss to the Dallas Stars. Was it awful? Was it not that bad? Where are they going? Why is Sam Gagner their hardest working player? We'll get into all of that on the oil stream today as our live coverage of, sports continues here at Edmonton Sports Talk. You can listen on the TuneIn app as well. And tell your friends it's that simple to consume us. You go on TuneIn, pop up there with every other radio station in the city. The difference is ours are entertaining. So we're looking forward to be pushing that out there as we continue to work our way along. Mark is just into the nasty chat and goes, Bouchard! Exclamation point. That sounds about right. I mean, I don't know how much time we'll spend breaking down what happened yesterday in the National Hockey League, but we'll probably get to it a little bit. We got Canadian Football League action set up. That's why I'm wearing a hat, because I'm league guy. I'm cheering for good football games this weekend, and I think we potentially could get a couple of them. So we'll take a look at those lines. The line has moved a little bit over at Coolbet. In the Stamps game, that was at 6.5. It is now at a flat 7. So we'll get into that when Hus pops by as well. I am looking here. Our Edmonton Sports Talk parlay is posted. That is up right now. We laid that out earlier today. Oh, P.S., we hit one yesterday. That was great. Little NFL one last night. Huge shout out to Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins. I hope somebody who knows Will Levis is like, man, boys on the Nielson show are really giving you some love. So it worked out well. We hit that yesterday. The Edmonton Sports Talk parlay that's already posted. You can get into the exclusives right now. Edmonton Oilers to win in regulation, and the Alberta Golden Bears -2.5 at home, plus 215. That'll be a little Saturday action. You can get that Edmonton Sports Talk parlay. I didn't even think we'd get it up this quickly, actually, considering that Oilers game likely isn't on the board, but we got it up for us, regulation, and then the Golden Bears at home playoff game against the Huskies, -2.5, plus 215. There he is. Hus, how you doing, my man?
You know what? I'm doing well. It was, I got 11 in a row over.
The damn Toronto Maple Leafs in a shootout. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, shootout. It was funny. I had to MC the Hockey Helps the Homeless event last night in Winnipeg for the tournament that's happening today.
Yeah.
It started at like 6:30, basically when the Boston-Toronto game started. So I saw nothing. I was just checking my phone repeatedly throughout the evening. It was 1-0 Boston, then it was 2, and boom, it was 2-2. And then rolled through. The event finished, or my duties finished right around 2 minutes into overtime. So I get into my truck. I got a race to meet up with the guys to watch the Jet game. And as I would get to lights, I would look over. Okay, 2 minutes left in OT, 10 seconds in OT. And then I got further down McPhillips to a longer light, looked, and the 3 came up in Boston. And I just did one of those, no! But you know what? Listen, it was an incredible run. In some ways, I'm a little relieved. It wasn't a terrible pick or anything like that. It was right there. Could have gone either way. And now I can just focus on these football games this week, not stress as much over trying to keep that streak going. That being said, I do have a good play of the day for tonight to start a new streak this evening, Dusty. But yeah, I mean, as much as that was disappointing, and obviously Carolina and Edmonton not getting it done for the partner parlay.
Yeah, that one, no good.
I rolled up to the bar just in time for the few minutes into the Jets game, looked over at the Pittsburgh Steelers game and realized that my guy Jalen Warren was going off. I looked at the group chat, saw TJ Watt had his sack, and then I saw Mr. Derrick Henry had his receiving yards. So listen, I got the Steelers spread, the most lock, and I really do regret not just putting the damn field goal.
I was just going to say, to lose it on Toronto is one thing, but to be on a field goal night,
Well, and listen, I mean, I picked that. Part of the reason was I think when I was doing it, it wasn't up yet. So I didn't know what the odds were. And I mean, we asked for it. We got it up during the lock shop. And I mean, you knew it was free money when that prop that's normally plus 125, plus 120 was plus 105. And I know Patty was talking about maybe an alt line of an over 4.5, which also would have cashed last night. So anyways, shout out to you and Pat and Barry Horowitz myself for another beauty. It was single game partner parlay. I think we've done like 3 of the last 4 primetime games. I think we've hit.
It's been good, man. Yeah, we've been rolling on those. It's been real nice.
And I mean, shout out to the Steelers who did it again. First team in the Super Bowl era to what was the stat? To be in first place or to have a winning record.
To have a winning record through 8 games without having had the most yards in any of the 8 games. They've been outgained in all 8 games.
Well. And like I said to the guys going into the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh down by 3. Mike Tomlin's got them right where they want them. That's the 4th game this season they've won while losing going into the fourth quarter. So, again, we talked about this the last couple of days. Don't ask how. Just expect it to happen. The Steelers finding a way to get it done, and they did it last night. I am encouraged about Will Levis, though. I think that this Levis dude is I think Tennessee might have their guy. Like, they whiffed so bad on that Malik Willis pick a couple years ago. I mean, he just can't throw at an NFL level, plain and simple. The guy can run. Levis, though, I mean, listen, he brought them back. They were close there at the end. Obviously, he had to force a few throws when you got 15 seconds left and you have to score a touchdown. But for the Titan fans out there, I think you got to be feeling pretty good about your young quarterback.
The throws he make, they're interesting to me because he obviously, he looks like he has a ridiculous arm. The ball kind of just sort of hangs up there a bit, eh? Like he kind of throws a little bit of a higher ball. Yeah. Yeah. It's even on some of the shorter passes, it's still kind of hung up. It's kind of hung up there a little bit. So I don't know if that's just like the mechanics of his throw or that's how he's always done it. But it looks like they might have something there, which is encouraging, I think, for Titans fans finally. I mean, maybe we're wrong. Maybe Titans fans are still concerned, but I don't know. I like what I've seen from him so far, man. It's short, small sample, but still. Yeah, exactly.
Four touchdowns in his debut. And I mean, let's not pretend like he's like Zach Wilson walking into a team that, other than the quarterback position, is set up. I mean, they're very, very mediocre. To maybe worse than that. But there you go. Somehow, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-3. And I will give myself a little bit of dap. I told you at the beginning of the season, watch Jalen Warren emerge as the guy. And listen, Najee Harris hasn't really been as bad as I expected. But Warren is that good. Man, he was all over the place.
They both are startable in fantasy.
At 100%. Which is
nice to see,
And as long as they've got Kenny Pickett there, who has sort of been struggling, and Matt Canada, who gets all the heat from the OC position, they're going to keep on riding those guys. And, of course, their defense. TJ Watt did it again. What a stud he is.
So that was the Thursday night pitcher in the National Football League. We'll quickly hit on our 2 hockey markets here, Hus. And then we'll dive into our CFL picks. And then, obviously, P. Greggy's going to pop by and help us set up another busy weekend in the National Football League. Few games that I really like on the board this week, so we'll certainly get into that. If you're watching right now, or if you're listening live on the TuneIn app or at edmontonsportstalk.com, you feel free to text us saying what's your best bet in the NFL this weekend, which games you like the most. Hit us up there at 780-218-9999. And, of course, in the Nasty Chat, which is always rolling as well. We'll get into a few of your comments over there. Winnipeg Jets, we'll get to that in a second. The Edmonton Oilers last night, Hus. just these critical mental mistakes and errors that are just costing them over and over and over again. A bad pinch by Cody Ceci eventually ends up in the back of the net. Broberg turns a puck over at center ice and then sort of awkwardly heads towards the bench 3-on-1. No chance for Skinner back of the net. Bouchard watches Rupe Hintz skate right by him to put them up 4-1 in the game. Then Sam Gagner, of all people, and you can talk a little bit about Sam
Mr.
Gagner.
Brightside.
Yeah, Sam Gagner comes out and just grinds the hell out of a couple of goals to give the Oilers some hope. And last night was the perfect example of the Edmonton Oilers' issues in that Sam Gagner went to the net harder last night than any Oilers player has done the entire season and basically made everybody else look bad from a work ethic perspective. You're like, look how hard Sam Gagner tries. Like, that hasn't been there from the rest of the group for the rest of the season so far. So positive from Sam Gagner last night, but in the end, they couldn't find an equalizer and they dropped to 2-6-1 to start the season.
That's, that is concerning. You had a Dallas team, as we talked yesterday, coming in off of a tough game the night before in Calgary, playing 3-4, and the Oilers had been just chilling, practicing, getting ready to get back at it after a pretty important win outdoors in the Heritage Classic. Listen, I don't know what to say at this point. It's pretty concerning. And the fact that the offense they got was from our old pal Sam Gagner, listen, that was a great story. I was stunned that he got the contract. I didn't realize that they kind of had room on the roster for Sam. I didn't really know where he'd fit. Well, you just sort of laid it out. He had a great start last season with the Jets too, to be honest. And the reason why I mentioned Mr. Brightside, that was his goal song. And he seemed to score a bunch of goals at home last year. And everyone loved that one. We sort of called him Mr. Brightside. We play on the show when he was getting it done. So the fact that he's getting another crack in the National Hockey League to do it back in Edmonton, I think is a great, great story. And you told us when he came to the Jets about what a great locker room guy he was and a great member of the team. And, honestly, I think that Oiler team maybe needs a little bit of veteran maturity and a guy to go out and, and lead by example, which he obviously did last night. You mentioned traffic around the net. That was something that the Winnipeg Jets haven't been getting enough. And, listen, it's hard to get too much on the Jets. Listen, Vegas is the standard. Yeah. They didn't play a terrible game last night. They played against a better team. And the Jets at 5-on-5 continue to hang with top level opponents. It's the special teams. The power play did get one late in the game, but they missed on some crucial opportunities early. And then Mason Appleton took a double minor, and Vegas made him pay twice on it. And they had just tied the game up 1-1. Next thing you know, it's 3-1, and that's a very, very tough team to come back on. So, listen, I think the Jets have some things that they can like about their game. They have to get it together special teams wise. Connor was maybe not quite at his Vezina level last night. If you maybe make one of those saves, do we have a different game in the third period? Possibly, because back to your point about making things difficult for the opposition goalie. Logan Thompson stoned the Jets in Winnipeg a couple weeks ago. He was really good last night. And in the third period, the Jets started to just say, F it. Let's put this at the net. Let's get there. Doing things, a lot of the things that the Vegas Golden Knights do to them. You move on. First game of a 3-game road trip. Interesting till tomorrow afternoon against the upstart Arizona Coyotes at the Mullet Arena. So we'll kind of take a look at that. We'll probably spend quite a bit of time on the next couple games, particularly Saturday on Winnipeg Sports Talk today. But for the lock shoppers that bet the home teams in the Edmonton and Winnipeg markets, not a lot of smiles last night, I think.
Yeah, the Oilers also have the matinee game tomorrow, and that's against Nashville, who they usually own. So maybe, mind you, if it's a team that they usually own and they somehow don't get it done, people are going to lose their mind. So that's something to watch for tomorrow. And then they get Vancouver on Saturday, and Vancouver's already got them twice. I guess we should have taken Vancouver minus 8.5 last night. But that'll be a big game too, man. The Canucks are a little wagony right now. Like, they look good, dude. Quinn Hughes is a stud, absolute stud.
The Hughes brothers are taking over the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that tweet from Button? He's like, hard. Jack Hughes, Norris, Quinn Hughes, Calder, Luke Hughes.
That'd be incredible.
I just heard their old man on with Merrick earlier this morning. Kind of interesting talking about it. Hey, shout out to the Big Uke. It says, Vegas and regulation money. Winnipeg had too much fun their 2 days before the game.
Yeah.
Don't think that wasn't a concern going in. They got out there early, had an extra day in Vegas, practiced. Nothing good comes from an extra day in Vegas before a National Hockey League game. And a quick turnaround, though. They get to Arizona. They play tomorrow afternoon. Then they'll have an extra day. So if you want to make that off day feel good, they better have a good game tomorrow and try and get out of the Mullet Arena with 2 points in the afternoon.
Pat Maroon's bib slides into the nasty chat here and says, wrong show, but I need free advice. People keep booking 11 a.m. meetings for business stuff. How do I tell them / prevent them from interrupting my lock shop me time?
Pat Maroon's bib, great question. I would suggest maybe saying that your company has a some wellness programs at 11 a.m. Maybe you're leading a company-wide yoga session at 11, and if they could potentially push it earlier or into the afternoon, you'd appreciate it.
There you go. There's your advice. All right, let's get to the Canadian Football League, and then we got a full slate of NFL action that we'll certainly get to. Pete Greggy will pop in on that. We'll build a little partner parlay, give you our best bets of the week as well. We've got 4 games each that we'll be laying out for you there, and then obviously we'll figure out what Patty's leaning towards, put something together. There has been some movement in the CFL playoffs, Hus. The Hamilton Tiger Cats have gone from 3.5-point dogs to 4-point underdogs, and the Calgary Stampeders, it was at 6.5, and it has moved to an even touchdown. 7 points on the road is what they are getting against the BC Lions. Let's start out east, and then we'll come out west here for a game that we probably are a little bit better off to talk about considering how much we watch the West in the Canadian Football League, Hus. But what do you think of the movement on the Ticats, that line getting to 4, and does it change the way you look at this thing?
It doesn't change the way I look at this thing, but it makes me more excited to bet it.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I was leaning towards the underdogs against the spread in both of these games for the last couple days. And I think now's the time to get in because we got an extra half point and a pretty key half point on both sides. Listen, I think that Montreal deserves to be the favorite, but I think there's a lot of things that indicate that Hamilton is sort of coming around at the right time. I think they've got a couple good quarterback options, which is something that they really didn't have for most of this year. And as much as Bo Levi Mitchell has the experience, I think Schiltz is probably going to be the guy that we maybe see a little bit more of. And listen, Cody Fajardo's had a great season so far. I mean, sort of reviving his career in Montreal, and I think Moss and Machocha have done a pretty good job. But this is no easy game from playing a Ticat team that I think of the teams in the East outside of Toronto comes into the playoffs with quite a bit of momentum. So I was already thinking that there was the potential for a Hamilton win and definitely a close game. At 3.5, I was leaning to Hamilton. You give me the extra half point at 4, and I will jump on the tabbies.
Yeah, I'm going to get on Hamilton here, +4 as well. Montreal, one of the most bizarre things, they lost to the elites all season and beat everybody else all season. The one thing that Hamilton has done that Montreal wasn't able to do is that Hamilton beat BC and they beat Winnipeg, didn't they? Did Hamilton? Yeah. So they've gone up and played at that elite level against these teams that we view as Grey Cup contenders, in which Montreal was not able to do that at any point this year. So I will not be surprised in any way if Hamilton goes in. And when I said on our show this morning, I feel like it's either Montreal in a close one or the Ticats roll them. I think it's like if Hamilton is on in this game, I think it's going to be tough for Montreal. I could see Montreal maybe winning it if it's a tight football game at the end. But yeah, Ticats +4. I can't not get on that. I don't think Montreal should be a 4-point favorite in this ball game. Hamilton went out to BC, beat them 30-13, and then beat Winnipeg 29-13. And Montreal couldn't beat Winnipeg, Toronto, or BC all season long. I just think the upside with the Ticats is higher than the upsides with the Alouettes. So if you're going to give us 4 points on it, I'm going to ride with you on the Ticats.
All right, let's get to the West Final. You've called both of these teams a ton of times. Let's start with you. Thoughts on the Lions right now in the Dome, playing against a team that came in there and beat them handily just a couple weeks ago as 7-point favorites with a trip to beautiful Winnipeg, Manitoba on the line.
7 points is a lot. I mean, and now Calgary's a 6-win team. Like, we have to remember that Calgary really technically shouldn't even be in the playoffs. Like, a 6-win team this year, they probably shouldn't be in the postseason. But 7
Shout
is
out
big.
Riders.
Yeah. 7 points is a I don't know how much we read into a couple of weeks ago. The one thing we can't take away from that game is that Calgary turned over the BC Lions. BC Lions had like 5 turnovers or something in that football game. Anytime any team turns the ball over 5 times, going to have a hard time winning a football game, let alone staying in it. Calgary has the 2 things that you would need come playoff time if you're looking for a recipe of at least an upset, or in this situation, a cover of 7. When they stay dedicated to it, they can run the football. And Kadeem Carey looks like he's going to be good to go. They got Peyton Logan, who's a great change of pace back. He was excellent against the BC Lions a little while ago. So they can run the football. And with
That's the key to them winning this game.
There's 2 keys. It's running the football and controlling it and keeping BC's very dynamic, quick strike offense off the field. And then Michael Alway and Cam Judge making plays defensively. Like, Alway had the 3rd most tackles in the history of the Canadian Football League this year. And in an ordinary year, Cam Judge would probably be your most outstanding Canadian. Like, he had a phenomenal year. He had 5 picks. Those 2 guys, and Mike Rose had a phenomenal year as well, double-digit sacks on the defensive line. But those 2 guys are the engine that run that Calgary defense. And if they can create some issues and turn the ball over a couple of times, and Calgary stays committed to their run and maybe doesn't fall behind early or something and have to go away from it a little bit, I mean, that would be the way to pull off this upset. I think I have to be on Calgary as a dog here at +7, which I hesitate a bit because all season long I was like, oh, maybe Calgary's better. Maybe Calgary's better. I'm not sure if they ever were. But I do think with Reggie Begelton in the lineup, they'll be able to keep BC's defense honest enough that it should open up the ground game a little bit. And if Jake Mayer can look after the football, man, Calgary should be able to keep this thing close.
Yeah, I mean, listen, is BC the better team? Have they had the better season? It's not even close. But how many times in CFL history have we seen a team that sort of gets it together, that finds themselves late in the season? Now, Jake Mayer, he didn't look great against the Bombers, although a lot of quarterbacks haven't looked particularly good against the Bombers. It was an outdoor game. It was snowy. There's going to be no excuses about, climate conditions or anything like that. And to be honest, if this game was outdoors, I think I'd like Calgary even more. I mean, I think BC does have a significant home advantage, and maybe VA just starts clicking with those receivers again and they run away with this. But when you look at the strength of the Calgary Stampeders, especially the interior of that offensive line, combine it with a couple of really good running backs in starting with Kadeem Carey, I think they can control the ball. I think that they can, really eat into the clock and keep the BC offense off the field. They can't turn the football over. I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, both teams, I think, if you have a big deficit in the turnovers, you're probably losing this football game. But just talking about this game from a betting and a spread perspective, to me, Calgary has exactly this sort of team and a game plan that can keep this game close into the 4th quarter. That's where they need to be. And listen, Dickinson's been around. I know it's been in a kind of an ugly season, but I mean, they sort of had the patience. They got a couple of those big wins at the end of the season. They took advantage of the ineptitude of the Riders, losing 7 in a row, and they're here. They've got nothing to lose right now. And who knows, maybe Jake Mayer kind of shows up and steps his game up a little bit as well. BC's the better team. If BC ran away with this game, I guess I wouldn't be shocked. But if we're going to lay a touchdown on the line, then let's not forget what Calgary did just a couple weeks ago. I mean, to me, I think that's important. They'll have a pretty good confidence level going back into this game. I think they're going to try and keep the ball away from BC. They're going to run the football, move the chains, run the clock, And that's a good thing if you're taking an underdog. So I'm with you as well. +7 on the Stamps. Let's do it.
Sean White, walk-off winner for the BC Lions to advance to the West Final. Your Western Conference Special Teams Player of the Year steps up and gets it done. And he's a beauty, too.
Friend of EST, isn't he?
Friend of EST, yeah. Sean White's he's a good dude. Mind you, could be a great kicking game with both Rene Paredes and Sean White, like two of the best to ever do it. We'll see how that plays out. Rod Z, I mean, one or the other. Rodzy, I like calling him just Rodzy. Rodzy says -9.5. BC rolls as the Lions gave no effort last game. The Lions will be highly motivated to get to Winnipeg. Guys, BC is going to stuff the run all day. Calgary will not rush for over 100 yards. Rodsy's got the hot CFL takes. I love it. Let's go. Give us some playoff action. That's for sure. Hus, let's start. Let's dive into the National Football League here. Give me some of your best bets, buddy, and then we'll get Maddie to bring Patty in here and help us along the way the rest of the way.
Well, oh geez, this is this has been a very, very difficult week. I mean, there's so many 3-point lines, and games that have gone one way or the other. I will not be jumping on the Chiefs-Dolphins game, but interesting to see that number was at 2.5, then it was 1.5. That sort of settled at 2. And some other great matchups. I mean, just quickly, the highlighted games: Seattle at Baltimore. Baltimore 6-point favorites. You've got the Rams and the Packers, not really a marquee matchup, especially with the question mark at quarterback for LA. But later on, you've got that Dallas-Philly game, a 3-point spread. Sunday Night Football, Bills-Bengals tomorrow at night. I think that's going to be a hell of a game. So where to start? Well, why don't we go with the game that everyone can't wait for? The New York Giants at the Las Vegas Raiders. Did you see that video that Max Crosby put out yesterday?
I did not.
It was just an Instagram thing. It's like, hey, Raider Nation, it's Max Crosby. We need you to turn up at Allegiant on Sunday. It's going to be a movie. Yeah, it's going to be a movie nominated for the Razzies, if you're familiar with that. It was just sort of a wild thing. Maybe he couldn't stand McDaniels. Listen, Antonio Pierce has taken over the Raiders. They're coming in on a short week after having their coach and their general manager fired. Jimmy G's being benched. And on the other side of things for the Giants, Danny Dimes is back. I don't know whether they were just holding him out, waiting to see the other guys, but Tommy DeVito, who passed for negative yards last week, and yet still that included overtime. I think the Giants will hang in this game. I think they win this game. I've already made a wager on the money line at +105. Full fade of the Raiders right now as they continue their annual collapse in the second half. You would not think backing the Giants on the road would be something that would be said very often, but think about what's happening in Vegas right now. I like the Giants to get a win in this one. Give me New York +1.5. Another game that I'm really looking forward to, and this is a tough one. What do I get if it's 2.5? Yeah, -125. Well, for the purposes of the lock shop, I'll stick it with the line that we're seeing right now in 3. And I'm going with the Eagles, Philly at home. To be honest, I think they should probably be 4 or 4.5 point favorites. Don't get ahead of yourselves, Cowboy fans, after beating the Rams the way you did last week. This is still a team that's been embarrassed by the Niners this year, has lost to Arizona. And they're going up against right now, I don't think there's much of a dispute, the number 1 team in the NFC. Dallas, betting against Dallas, you always get good value because it's such a public team that they are. So I think Philly, to be honest, is being a little disrespected in this game. Could it be close? Could it be a field goal either way? Sure. But I'm going to ride with Philly and what they've done. And don't think that the link will not be absolutely insane on Sunday afternoon for one of their most hated rivals. So I'm locking in the Eagles at -3. And in the Sunday nighter, Bills, Bengals in Cincinnati. I'll be honest, I'm surprised that this number is only at 2 right now, because if you look at where these two teams are, there's one team that is going up, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. Joey Burrow is back. He's back to being Joe Burr, the Iceman. They had the huge win against San Francisco. And listen, they're still in a situation that they have to get these wins. Like, they're 4-3, but they're last place in the AFC North right now, tied with Cleveland. And it's hilarious to think, but they've got to beat the Bills to keep pace with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, who right now are on top of the division at 6-2. And I don't know what to think about the Bills right now. I mean, I do know what to think. They've been very underwhelming for the better part of the last month right now. So I'm on Cincy at -2 in that game, and I'm teetering between a couple of picks for my fourth. Why don't you quickly rattle off your 4, and then I'll have my final pick at the end of that.
Well, it's funny because I had Philadelphia as like one of the ones I was considering. So I'm going to take those out because 2 of your other ones I'm actually on as well. I think the partner parlays might come together really easily. Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, I'm all over the Bengals right now. I'm with you 100%. The fact that we're getting that inside 3, I think this morning when I looked at it, it was 1.5. It's sitting at 2 right now. The Bengals are rolling in the right direction. It seemed like just a matter of time until it started to click, and it is starting to click with the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll get to the Bills fan, Pat Gregoire, in just a second here. I'm also on the Giants. I mean, you laid it out nicely. How can anybody be on the Raiders right now with the mess that thing has become? So I like the Giants plus 1.5. The other ones that I'm looking at is, I'm a big Minshew guy, right? I'm a big Minshew guy, and I know the Colts defense has been absolutely horrendous. Minshew has had some tough matchups so far and has still found a way to be somewhat productive. Now they get the Carolina Panthers, maybe all fat and happy after their first win of the year, and it was a disappointing effort against Houston anyway. So I like the Colts here. And once again, you get it inside 3. They're on the road, -2.5. I think this is a defense that Minshew, I think Minshew can do some damage against the Carolina Panthers. So I like Minshew and the Colts -2.5 on the road as well. This one I'm not overly confident in, but I'm intrigued to see Heineke get a hold of the Atlanta Falcons and some of the weapons that they have there. It's at 4 right now. I'd love it if I could have it at 3 or 2.5 or something like that. I might move that eventually if I'm throwing it in some other parlays here.
It was 5 earlier.
Was it 5 earlier? Okay.
I don't think it's going to get because everyone thinks that the Vikes have no quarterback.
Yeah.
I want to take the Vikes in this game. I'm not going to put it on my
but
my 4,
with the Vikings, I mean, what are they starting? A 5th-round pick?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't think – I would be worried about underestimating just how important Kirk Cousins is to the Minnesota Vikings. Like, Kirk is having a phenomenal season. Those are tough shoes to fill. So I'm actually, maybe I'm going against the grain here a little bit, but I'm going to get on Atlanta minus the 4 points here and let Heineke cook a little bit with the new group. I mean, they've got weapons. They just don't seem to utilize them. And I don't know if that's on Smith, who seems to be completely in over his head, or if it was on the play of Ritter. But I have always liked Heineke, so I'm going to side with Heineke here. So I'll go Atlanta -4, Colts -2.5, the Giants +1.5, and the Cincinnati Bengals -2. I really do like the Eagles as well if we decide to put together a little bit of a parlay on that front. Let's bring in Pat Gregoire right now. P. Greggy, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, boys. Doing good. I woke up this morning as I normally do and go to dive into all the lines, some of the props coming up for NFL, but I could not help but notice, but been blown away while I was walking my dog to realize, and not to get off track here, but I'm going to get a little bit off track. Do you guys know the NBA in-season tournament starts tonight?
Yeah, with the new floors. They got the new floors.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to think about this. Part of me is like, who cares? It's basically the regular season. Yeah, they get a bonus. But for me, maybe this is a way to have a little more intrigue for regular season basketball and have a little more fun betting on it. We've got the odds on CoolBet. Obviously, we're going to get some exclusives up there as well. But for me, I just don't know. Is this a fake way to make us believe that these regular season games actually do matter in the NBA? Or am I just completely not buying it, and it's just really just a way to fluff things up.
I got time. I got time for this. I mean, soccer fans love all the in-season tournaments, and I think in North America it might be tough to push out for a little bit, but I think if they stick with it, I think the NBA is much more global than everything else that's happening in North America, in my opinion, and I think because of that, this might actually work. So I'm somewhat intrigued.
Does anyone know how this works? Does anyone know how this thing works?
You don't need to know how it works, right? You just want to sit back and watch them all play on this specifically designed court for tournament games,
So I did a little bit of digging this morning because I was like, oh, okay, cool. So like, do these games like count to regular season? Is it completely?
That I believe they do.
Yeah. So it does. So it still counts to your regular season record. Basically, you're putting a group in your conference. You play 4 games per team. You pretty much play everyone. It's a round robin in your group. And then 8 teams advance to the knockout stages. Then there's 3 group winners from the East and the West, plus 2 wildcard teams. And it pretty much runs from now until, I believe, some point in December. It's a single elimination, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship. And they play for, I think it's like $500K each per player. So, I mean, these guys aren't short for cash, but as we know, people who have money, they like to get more money. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to come in and, have a dump in my pants and say this is dumb right off the hop. Again, I mean, we saw guys with load management 2-3 games into the season. Now that there is a little more added to the regular season game, maybe this helps solve the game management, the load management that we're seeing across the NBA. I don't know. I saw it this morning and I wanted to know your guys' take on it.
Well, I mean, I'm intrigued in those sort of, unique. I mean, we all know that these regular seasons of North American pro sports and basketball and hockey go on forever. I mean, if you can install something that makes it a little bit more interesting for these games in the second month of the season, I'm here for it for sure. I do know I got some buddies that were actually going down to a Raider game. And whatever, we were at BP and watching a hockey game, and at the bottom they were talking about the tournament and the finals of that, the semis for sure, and the finals are in Vegas as well. So it'll be a neat little, kind of in the season to, I think there'll probably be a little bit of hype on it. And hey, just better than the same old slate. So I'm not a hater on it. I'll look forward to seeing what we get.
All right, let's get into the National Football League. Hus, you still have one more best bet, right? You got that?
I do.
All right, dish that out, then we can get Patty's thoughts on a bunch of the stuff.
You know what? I'm gonna lock in the Seahawks at +6. +6. We did not talk about this on Monday because we didn't bet it, and it was somewhat of an afterthought, and it wasn't even on one of the screens, where I was watching the games. But the Arizona Cardinals backdoor cover last Saturday was an all-timer. They were down, I think, 17, and in the last few minutes of the game, scored a couple touchdowns, or got a kick, and ended up losing by 7. Baltimore never in danger, but they did blow the cover. But listen, I think Seattle is in a situation that, they're in first place right now in that division. With the 3 straight losses by the 49ers. The 49ers are off this week. This is a huge, huge game for Seattle. I know they're traveling across the country. It's an early game. And I think Baltimore deserves to be a significant favorite in this. I just feel like the Seattle defense is coming together right now with the young talent they have. And they've got the playmakers to be able to hang in this game with Baltimore. And Baltimore is an inconsistent team. They'll look great for a bit, then they'll sort of come back. They'll find ways to win more often than not. I just think when I think about these two teams, I think Seattle's maybe being slept on a little bit in this case. I don't think people realize what they've done so far and where they're at. 6 points, big number for me. Oh, just as we've done this, I think it's moved again. It's actually now at 5.5 right now. I kind of locked it in earlier.
Literally changed like in the last 2 minutes. Yeah, I was just looking at it.
Yeah, and you know what else just changed too is the Philly number. Philly Had to be live when we were doing it, I guess, because that I think is now moved over to 3.5, 2.5, and the 3 is off the board. So that'll be back up soon. But I'm Seattle +6. That's that was my fourth pick. The other 3: Cincy -2, Giants +1.5, Eagles -3.
Patty, what do you like here, buddy?
Well, let's just start with the last thing that Hus had said, because it's also on the top of my card. I love the Seahawks here at this number. Seahawks, you mentioned a lot of great things. I'll just kind of reiterate some of them here, Hus. You mentioned the defense. They're huge at stopping the defense. They're allowing only 3.6 yards per carry. That's third best in the NFL. That's going to come a big way. And yes, I know the Ravens have found a little bit of an aerial assault with Zay Flowers. Well, Odell Beckham is starting to already rock that boat in that receiver's locker room, but who's surprised about that? Absolutely no one. But with that being said, though, they still rely heavily on the run, whether it's Lamar, whether it's someone in the backfield. They're a run-heavy team. But you mentioned it on the Seattle side. This is a huge, massive prove-it spot. This is them proving that they are the real deal, and it's not a fluke that they're where they are right now. They have some success in the past, especially this year as well, going out east and playing. They're not a team that, you go into a different time zone and they get smoked. They have come up with some big games, and in non-conference play as well. Everyone wants to talk about how good Lamar is in non-conference play. Well, Seattle is the same, 12-7-1 in non-con since 2019. And the big thing for the Ravens, they struggle to cover the spread when it is these big spreads more than a field goal or around that touchdown mark. So for me, I really like the Seahawks here, Hus. It's my favorite bet. Going to continue to make you happy here, Hus, because I like the Chiefs -1.5. I would also, if it's a parlay, I would go money line and not worry about that. Patrick Mahomes is 16-3 straight up after a loss since becoming the starter in Kansas City, and he's a 10-7 against the spread in those games as well. On the flip side, it's Miami. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They're a great offense. They're prolific. They can score. The defense is getting better. They don't have that signature win yet, and I don't think it's
two big tests that
game.
they've had, Patty. They've blown, right. Like it hasn't been good at all.
Got the doors blown in by Buffalo, and they hung around with Philly, but near the end of the game, the wheels fell off. So I really like the Chiefs. The last two bets that I like, you talked about the one game. Actually, talked about both these games. The over 49.5 Bills and Bengals. Bills defense is still banged up, and it's showing. Their defense can't stop anything. But on the flip side, their offense is starting to show some life. Josh Allen is given an opportunity here from Ken Dorsey to run the ball a little more, and he's been begging apparently to go with more of a up-tempo offense. And that's really in the last few years where we've seen this Bills offense thrive is when they go no huddle, when they go up-tempo. I think they realize now that if the Buffalo Bills are going to be a contender, they can't win by their defense anymore. They're just too banged up. They're going to have to win with their offense. And on the flip side, I mean, look at the Bengals. The Bengals are back. They are absolutely back. If I was betting aside here, taking away my Bills Mafia Zubaz and my bias, I'd be betting the Bengals as well with you guys. I think this is a great spot for them. I think they're trending in the right direction. But with that being said, the Bengals offense is heating up. The defense really isn't great either. So 50 points on a Sunday Night Football. We know all the off-field I don't want to say distractions, but it's a big game for Buffalo. Not only, the emotions that happened against this Bengals team in this building, but also the Bills got absolutely embarrassed in that playoff game against the Bengals. Like there is a lot on the line here for both sides. So I think it's going to be a shootout. The other one, I think you guys are both on the Giants. I don't necessarily love a side there, but those are two putrid offenses. I'm taking the under 37.5. Again, it's a Big Ten under, but I'm taking it. Two teams are combined 13-3 to the under this season. So give it to me. I'm heavy.
That's a nice trend.
I was just looking to see if the kicking props were up for that one because I know it's not a primetime game, but it's got a feel of a Titans Steelers game, and you know what I'm saying. That means field goals. We'll see if the over 3.5 gets hung on that one, and I think I'll probably take a little sprinkle on that as well.
Hus, what are we thinking for a partner parlay here, buddy?
Well, I say this: if we both like Philly. We can do. Let me just erase all this and get it out to see where we're at. Let's take Philly, and I guess because the number is 3, 2.5 is -125. So, what you want to start with Philly at minus 2.5?
Yeah, sure. Let's throw Philly in there. Patty, any thoughts on Philly and Dallas? I don't know if you really hit on that one, but
that's not on my card, but I had a lean to Philly. Again, don't take everything with a grain of salt. I think that Dallas is just not a good football team, and they can't beat good teams. Yeah. And I still think, despite us not really seeing it from the Eagles, they're a good football team. I think they get it done, and I think they score a bunch on this Dallas defense.
Hey, what do we have an update on the Rams quarterback situation? Stafford out. Is it going to be Brett Hundley?
I think I heard, who was it going to be?
I mean, I'm taking from the fact that the Packers are 3-point home favorites that is the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to find out who their starter is. Somebody will probably let us know.
Yeah, if anyone's seen in chat.
Is it Brett Rippon?
It might
Brett
be
Rippon.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brett Hundley. Yeah. But not Matt Stafford. I guess that is the key. If Stafford's starting, this is probably Rams by a short number as a road favorite.
I think we got to put the Bengals in here for the partner parlay, don't you, Hus? Like, we're both on them. Patty likes the spot for them as well. Or you worry about that a bit?
Listen, I'm fully in on the Bengals. If we make it 1.5.
I mean, you could still even go if you just go money line at -125. You're really not losing that much value either.
Yeah, because what is it at -1.5? Hus, did you look that up?
-114 for -1.5,
so, yeah.
-125
for money line. Just go Bengals money line at home here.
And we'll take the Eagles to
-2.5. All right, then what else do we have here? You guys both like Seattle. I think you made good cases. I would not stop us from putting Seattle on the card.
If we got that extra, if we take Seattle to 6.5, it is -122. What's the 7.5 number? Here's Bengals money line, Eagles -2.5, and the Seahawks +7.5. Comes out to +450 before we.
That's not bad. Before a boost, hey.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys seem pretty convinced on Seahawks, so I think you made a good case for it. And if we're moving it from 6 to 7.5, I mean, and we're still going to probably end up close to 5-1. I don't know why we would.
Yeah.
Why we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love the way that looks. I mean, these are all games that I'm sort of on, but yeah, Bengals money line -125, Eagles -2.5, -125, and we get the Seahawks up to 7.5. It's in at -143. That, if you put it in on a standalone, is +450 or +451. So we're probably looking at close to a 5-1 once it gets hung, but bet it early because I could see that one coming down.
Let's lock it in. Let's make it happen. We'll throw that in there. Patty, any objections? Good to go?
No, I love it. I just, before I go, and Hus, before you have to roll over to Winnipeg Sports Talk, Crown Jewel this weekend. Any picks?
Yes.
Any picks?
Let's see here. We've got, I mean,
There's some big lines. That's
Interesting. Cody Rhodes minus 625 against Damian Priest. I don't mind that. Listen, there's one great match from a betting standpoint, and it's Solo Sikoa of the Bloodline versus the GOAT, John Cena. And it's a pick'em. Very rarely do you get a pick'em in pro wrestling. Very rarely do you get to bet on pro wrestling, first and foremost. But very rarely do you get a pick'em. And I guess we have to think this is in Saudi Arabia. So maybe Cena's done a whole lot of losing to a whole bunch of, putting over the younger stars. He's great like that. This is part, I guess, of a bigger sort of this bloodline thing that's been going on with Roman Reigns forever. Normally, if this was in North America, I think I might lean towards Solo Sikoa as the young guy that they're going to put over. But because it's in Saudi Arabia, a lot of these events sort of get overlooked, to be perfectly honest. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to give Cena a win. They'd like to do it there and send the fans home happy. So, you know what? Let's go. Let's go. Cena, you can't see me.
I love that.
Minus 120. Just the other ones. I mean, Roman Reigns, massive favorite against LA Knight. That one's unbettable. Logan Paul, minus 1,000 versus Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is plus 500. I mean, you'll never see me laying any money on like minus 1,000 favorites in wrestling. But I could potentially see Mysterio win, setting up a rematch or something back in Winnipeg, or back in North America, I should say. Io Sky minus 303 over Bianca Belair. I mean, will we see a title change in Saudi Arabia? I kind of doubt it. And Rhea Ripley, a massive favorite in that 5-way. And that final matchup, Seth Rollins minus 400 against Drew McIntyre plus 250. Probably like Seth as well. But if you're going to bet one, go to the pick'em. Let's take the GOAT, John Cena. There we go. Your WWE update for I was pumped that you guys put it up on the board, though. It'll be a fun thing to follow throughout the afternoon.
Should be a good one. Winnipeg Sports Talk's coming up. I got Fantasy Football 5 right now, so we'll all just sort of sign off. Enjoy the weekend, boys. And Patty, text us when that partner parlay is up, and all the lock shoppers can hammer it, and we can try to remain red hot here, working our way through another weekend. Have a good one, guys.
Let's keep it going. Have a great call, Dusty. Yep. And let's see if we can get a couple nice close games tomorrow. Cover those spreads with the Ticats and the Calgary Stampeders. Fellas, have a great weekend. We'll be in touch. And yes, let's get in on that exclusive as soon as it's up.
See you later, boys.
Right on, guys.
11:53 here at Edmonton Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining us. Quick Fantasy Football 5 right now. You can hit us up at 780-218-9999 if you have any questions, and we do have some questions rolling in, so we'll get to a few of those as well. Also, I am 2-6 in a fantasy league, and I'm still thinking about taking a run at it. Somebody please tell me not to. Somebody please just tell me. Yeah, Matt, of course, Maddie's saying don't. I'm in the same league as him, and he's one of the guys that I'm trying to track down. But I don't know. I look at my team, and I go, man, there's a chance that this team could be okay-ish. Stroud, Bijan Robinson, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, Jordan Addison. That should be a team that could win 3 of the next 4 or something and maybe squeak in to the postseason. So I know I've talked about that team for 3 weeks in a row, and I've done blow it up episodes and should I trade this guy? Now I'm sitting here going, oh, maybe I'm not done just yet. So please talk me out of that. The Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, presenting sponsor of the Fantasy Football 5. Lieutenant Eric and his nasty little crew there had a good time last night watching both the hockey game and the football game. And of course, he will be back on Monday for the Monday Nighter. You can join him and get in the mix. Pop by there Sunday as well as they enter people into a draw for a Rams-Browns game every Monday, Sunday, and Thursday. Let's get to a few of your questions. Hey, Dusty, I need a flex. Gabe Davis, James Cook, Josh Downs. That comes from Rick in Jasper. I think I kind of want to say Downs with Garrett Minshew. Or Gardner Minshew. I was just looking at it. kind of rode with the Colts in the lock shop a little bit earlier today. Now, Buffalo Cincy could be a shootout, in which case, a Gabe Davis or a James Cook may get theirs. Downs is kind of flying under the radar, having a pretty nice season right now. So, probably going against the grain a little bit, but I'd say Downs. This one, it says, Davante Adams now has a quarterback that can throw him the ball with Aiden at the helm. Everybody and his mama fading the Raiders in the NFL. Ain't about giving out freebies. Raiders win. And Davante Adams, it's an interesting spot right now. Like, what do you do with Davante Adams in fantasy? They're going to, an inexperienced quarterback, but Raiders fans seem to like what they might get out of this guy. And if you're a young quarterback in a spot where you have to find a way to succeed over the next little while to possibly establish yourself as having a career in the National Football League, what is one thing that you think you would do pretty much every single time? And that is look to Davante Adams. So I would probably sit tight on Davante Adams right now. There are a couple guys that I would maybe go out and try to hit up in a buy low situation. One of them has to be Tony Pollard. Like, Tony Pollard owners have to be getting insanely frustrated with the season that he's put together so far. So that's probably worth, I want to say, a phone call, but who calls on the phone to somebody about a fantasy football trade? Slide into their text, slide into their DMs, just straight up fire them an offer and see what they end up saying. But Tony Pollard's a guy that I would possibly consider buying low on right now. I don't even know what the price would be, but I'd have time to maybe take a run at Olave, who I was all hot and horny for prior to the season. He and his quarterback have both basically left a bunch of fantasy points out on the field so far. Like, there are opportunities there that Carr has missed on. There's opportunities that Olave should have done better in. So I'm kind of thinking that there could be a really nice second half of the year for Olave owners. And then, look, I went and got him a couple of weeks ago, upgraded from a 4th-round pick to a 2nd-round pick, and moved Brandon Ayuk to get T. Higgins. I think as the Cincinnati offense and Cincinnati as a team continues to get back on track, it just can't all be Jamar Chase. There are a couple of very big T. Higgins weeks in the cards coming here. And once again, like Tony Pollard, T. Higgins owners might be extremely frustrated right now. So that would be another guy. And these are guys at the beginning of the year who basically were all carrying a 2nd-round grade or better. Olave would have been, a late 2nd-round pick, early 3rd-round pick. T. Higgins was the 2nd-round pick, and Tony Pollard was a 1st pick, for goodness sake. So they had the value going in. Hasn't been an absolute disaster necessarily so far. But if you believe they could still become what you thought they would at the beginning of the year, then it's probably worth a phone call, as I said. Dusty, start Henderson or Hubbard. My other starting running back is Raheem Mostert. You got to go with the local guy, don't you? And I like Mark. He says, the Bel Air playbook, just pass it to Will. Just pass it to Davante Adams. Right? That's kind of what makes the most sense. All right, that's going to do it for the Fantasy Football 5 today. Thank you very much for popping by quickly. If you have not yet subscribed to the Fantasy Football 5 podcast, make sure you do. You can listen to it very conveniently. It's just 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes, depending on the day. Today, we got a lot to get to on the oil stream. Make sure you stick around for that. Myself and Tommy right here in the Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen studio as we break down another loss for the Edmonton Oilers, as with a cupcake schedule to start the year. They have started 2-6-1. What's the level of concern at right now for you Oilers fans? Make sure autoplay is on YouTube. That'll directly take you over to the oil stream, which will be starting in just a matter of moments. That's your Fantasy Football 5 for this Friday afternoon.